Being a great artist takes a toll. Maybe you think you have to suffer for your art, or you become consumed by your obsessions. And then there's Pablo Picasso. Great artist? Yes. Difficult life? Most definitely. But he dealt with the pressure of being a great artist by being one of the biggest womanizers this side of the easel. So, today we're dipping our brushes into the incorrigible sex life of Pablo Picasso. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other famous artists you would like to hear about. Okay, in case you were wondering, this video was not made by each section visually representing a different point of view. Pablo Picasso was a Spanish expatriate who rose to prominence in the early 20th century. He was most widely known for co-founding the Cubist art movement, where subjects are broken into various cubes representing different perspectives. And now you get the previous joke. Picasso also displayed a mastery over the mediums of sculpture and printmaking. And all of these works reflected his political beliefs and personal emotions. Picasso was one of the most influential and creative minds of the 20th century. But he didn't have a whole lot of respect for women. At the core of his life and work were Picasso's muses, the many, many women who came and went as he transitioned through his artistic periods. Picasso famously said women were either goddesses or doormats, and the man practiced what he preached. The constant cheating, womanizing, and mental trauma he allegedly heaped on his girlfriends, lovers, mistresses, and wives attests to this polarized view of women. His works demonstrated this too, and the details of Picasso's intimate life provide some unique insight into what drove his artistic mind. Picasso grew up in Spain, and after Sunday Mass, went to the local brothel with his father, José Ruiz y Blasco. Hey, some people go to brunch, some people go to a brothel. Picasso's father was also an artist and introduced his son to the concept of working girls at a very young age, which clearly influenced Picasso's perspective on how to treat women. Picasso had his first sexual encounter with a sex worker at the age of 13. You don't know her, though. She goes to another school. In 1907, Picasso painted Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. This work featured 5 Parisian working girls in raunchy poses, representing the female form in a Cubist style with African influences throughout. It was a revolutionary and controversial piece, to say the least, and it's perhaps an extension of Picasso's childhood experiences. One of Picasso's initial big relationships was with model Fernande Olivier. They met through the local Spanish art scene and quickly fell in love. They moved in together in 1905, and soon after this, Picasso demanded that she stop modeling. In fact, Olivier had recently posed for sculptor François-Léon Sicard, who was making a monument for Algeria. But Picasso refused to let her finish the sitting. She probably wished he would have said that before she signed the lease. She continued to pose for Picasso, however, and was the model for one of the first Cubist sculptures, the aptly titled Cubist Head, Portrait of Fernande. She continued to be the inspiration for much of Picasso's artwork from his Rose period. The relationship between Picasso and Olivier lasted for 7 years. Picasso was incredibly jealous and supposedly locked Olivier in their apartment to stop her from going out without him. After Olivier got sick around 1910, their relationship fell apart, but they remained friends. In 1916, Picasso fell in love with Irène Lagut, born Marie-Thérèse Onasime Lagut. With the help of his friend, poet Guillaume Apollinaire, Picasso took Lagut to the outskirts of Paris, against her will. How do you say kidnapping in French? Picasso was extremely possessive. He didn't want anyone else to have access to Lagut, so he took steps to hide her away. She managed to escape this captivity, but went back to Picasso about a week later. After all, he was Picasso. The dude painted Guernica. Sure, many years later, but he was no less impressive at the time. Lagut and Picasso were on and off again during 1916, and they decided to marry at the end of the year. Lagut changed her mind, which seems reasonable but kind of late given the whole abduction/courtship thing, and she went back to Paris to reconcile with her former lover. But Lagut and Picasso reconnected in 1923, and his painting, The Lovers, is based on their relationship. Russian ballerina Olga Khokhlova gave birth to Pablo Picasso's son, Paolo, in 1921. Afterward, she was plagued by health problems while her husband began an affair with the young Marie-Thérèse Walter, which is classic Picasso. Khokhlova didn't know her husband had taken a 17-year-old mistress, and Picasso lived a double life as long as he could. But even after Khokhlova found out, perhaps by seeing her husband's sketches or looking at the picture of Walter he kept in his wallet, the couple did not divorce, though they did separate in 1935. Picasso's relationship with Walter, not to mention the constant attention he paid to other women, drove Khokhlova to take their son to the south of France that year. After leaving her husband, she continued to send him hate mail. When Pablo became his father's chauffeur, Khokhlova lived out of a suitcase, following her estranged husband and son around Europe. She was called mad by Picasso's friends and, at the end of her life, requested to see her husband, but he refused. Khokhlova passed away from cancer in 1955. When Picasso saw Marie-Thérèse Walter for the first time, he, quote, accosted her, in her own words, and declared, "You have an interesting face. I would like to do a portrait of you. I feel we are going to do great things together." They went on to have a 9-year relationship. Walter was only 17 years old when the two met in 1927, but she quickly became Picasso's obsession. He kept his mistress at an apartment in Paris, while spending time with his wife, Khokhlova, in Cannes. His work during this period reflected his passion for Walter. During her 9-year relationship with Picasso, Walter devoted herself to the artist. She spent almost a decade hidden, only known to Picasso's closest friends. Picasso's lawyers actually told him not to be seen with her, probably because he was very much still married. Art historian John Richardson paints Walter's entire life as devoted to being the artist's great love and muse, and she more or less succeeded in that ambition. The art Picasso produced during his time with Walter included Nude Green Leaves and Bust, which sold for a record $106.5 million in 2010. After Pablo Picasso and Fernande Olivier split up, he got a new mistress, Eva Gouel, also known as Marcel Humbert. Gouel was a friend of Olivier's, and once she was in a relationship with Picasso, the couple left Paris to escape their mutual friend. The relationship lasted about 4 years, and though he never painted her directly, she appeared symbolically, frequently represented as either a musical instrument or music itself. Gouel was a good businesswoman and helped Picasso sell his paintings, but she was frail and ill, stricken with either tuberculosis or cancer. She became increasingly sick in 1915 and was hospitalized. During that time, Picasso took care of Gouel and nursed her back to health, or at least maybe he thought about that for a minute or a second. In reality, Picasso began a new relationship with his neighbor, Gabrielle Lespinasse. This guy went through women like Subway Club punch cards. In 1943, Picasso met fellow painter Françoise Gillot, and by 1946, they began living together. Gillot gave birth to 2 of Picasso's children, Claude and Paloma, in 1947 and 1949, respectively. Like with Picasso's other relationships, Gillot experienced the artist's many eccentricities. She talks bluntly about his, quote, total absence of empathy and love, his lack of remorse and facile rationalizations for hurting others, a lust for seduction as a form of exercising power over women, duplicity and manipulation as a way of life, the pattern of idealize, devalue, and discard in every romantic relationship he's had, the underlying desire for control, and unshakable narcissism and the drive to do evil by damaging the lives of the women who became his partners. We suspect Gillot was not shy about leaving comment cards. Gillot stayed with Picasso until 1953. When asked about their relationship and why it ended, she simply stated, "I am not a submissive woman." The power Pablo Picasso had over women combined art, intimacy, and passion. According to his granddaughter Marina, he seduced the women in his life to crush them onto his canvas after he had spent many nights extracting their essence. Once they were bled dry, he would dispose of them. Wow. When talking about Grandpa, people usually just say things like, he liked hard candy and watching Jeopardy. The women in relationships with Picasso were either strong-willed and unwilling to put up with his ways, like Geneviève Laporte and Françoise Gillot, or submissive and devoted, like Marie-Thérèse Walter and Jacqueline Roch. and the latter two found themselves in tragically desperate situations after their time with Picasso ended. 4 years after Picasso passed in 1973, Walter hanged herself in her garage. Khokhlova, who treated the painter like a saint during their time together, shot herself in 1986 in the home she once shared with the artist. According to one biographer, quote, Marie-Thérèse and Jacqueline were evidently prepared to sacrifice themselves on the altar of his art. Dramatic language aside, these events could be seen as evidence of the psychological hold Picasso had on his lovers. Despite being a towering figure in the world of art, Picasso's personal behavior and indiscretions paint a different portrait of him as a person. And although his acclaimed works hang in our most celebrated museums, his track record of jealousy, abuse, narcissism, and cold indifference may distort appreciation for the man himself. But Guernica is still a hell of a painting. So what do you think? Was Picasso a cruel Lothario or just a bad boyfriend? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.